Bringing a complex drug to market isn't just about science. It's about telling the story in a way that resonates with patients, doctors, investors. And at CG Life, that's our North Star. I can tell you doctors get a ton of content. If we can use social as a way to find a tribe, to find a group of patients that are struggling or their caregivers and impart to them content that is relevant, respects her intelligence, she'll take that, she'll save it, she will pass it around, send it to her colleagues. She's an audience.
All right. So we've had tons of episodes on this podcast. We talk with, CEO and other executives of different life science companies. We figure out, what kind of products are they working on. So I wanted to switch things up a little bit and get into the world of biopharmaceutical marketing. I wanted to bring somebody here who has tons of experience in that space, who works with companies of all sizes, 1 to 10 employees, all the way up to 1,000 to 5,000 employees. So we're going to dive into this conversation. We're going to talk all about biopharmaceutical marketing, storytelling for startups, how to build agency, a marketing agency, and everything under that sun, right? So my guest here today is David. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, Harsh. It's really great to be here. Appreciate your interest in this space.
Yeah, so you have, I forget the number, but I know it's north of 30 plus years of experience in marketing. I know you founded Closer Look, and now you're heading up the CG Life Sciences company.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into the marketing world, specifically into life sciences? Was that Can you share with our audience how that journey started?
Sure. Well, first of all, you have to understand I'm an entrepreneur. And when I started my first agency, it actually wasn't a digital marketing agency focused on life sciences. My
Mm,
first career was in television. And so when I started Closer Look, it really was as a creative agency focused on telling great stories. I learned how to tell stories in the world of television, and I thought, can I bring this into the world of marketing? But at one point, a management consultant friend challenged me to declare a focus. He said, you can't be all things to all people. And when you're a small agency, you just can't take everything. If you really want to grow, you have to become an expert. So, looking at the kind of work we were doing, I decided, let's choose life sciences and specifically pharma. Seemed to make the most sense, not only from our experience, but also trends in the marketplace. And over the years, Closer Look grew into a major digital AOR, agency of record for pharma. So much so that in 2021, I sold the firm to a
mm,
UK based private equity agency called Fishwack. And I stayed on for about a year. I ran the US and the global marketing group for Fishwack, about half the revenue of the company. And then I left and just started to do some consulting. I started
mm.
consulting with other agencies like Closer Look in this space. I started consulting with private equity firms who saw what I had done and what other companies like mine were doing and wanted to get into this space themselves. And so they were looking for help in building out their investment thesis. Um, and then at the end of 2022, I joined the board of a small PE-backed life science agency called CG Life here in Chicago. And after about a year in the role, the board
Mm.
asked me if I would consider joining the company full-time as CEO. At that point, I had the luxury of having spent time with the leadership, with the company, seeing what they do, seeing their passion for life science. And so my decision was pretty easy. Yes, coach, send me in. And
Yeah.
so that's how I started with CG Life.
Quick word for you. Here's something interesting that my team shared with me from the back end of our YouTube channel. 87.8% of the people who've watched any of our videos throughout the lifetime of the channel have not yet subscribed. If you're one of them, we would love to have you on board. Subscribing is free, literally costs you nothing, but it means the world to us. It helps us bring in more top tier industry leaders and experts, and also helps us improve the production quality of our episodes. So, if you watched any of our videos before, found something valuable, or learned more about our topic or our guest, could I please ask you for a small favor to go ahead and click the subscribe button below? Thank you, and I'll repay that gesture by making sure that everything we do here gets better and better with every new video uploaded to the channel. That is my word to you. We could not have done this without you, and I appreciate all your support. Thank you, and let's go back to the episode. Yeah, what's really interesting to me is that life sciences industry is filled with tons of technical experts. You have scientists, you have doctors. A lot of these people are becoming CEOs of companies. Maybe they have a business background, or maybe they're just extremely scientifically respected in the community, and that's why they're leading these companies. And a lot of the times, I feel, especially in your shoes, translating what they're doing in the lab and their science into the market to what the patient cares about, right? Because the patient may or may not understand how the drug works, what's the mechanism of action, what's cell therapy, what's CAR T, all these terms, right? So you have to sort of simplify that, tell the story. Why did the founder start the company? So I'm sure you worked with, in your experience as you're working with all these companies, you also have this on your lot of your branding and website materials, that CG Life specializes in blending the science and the storytelling aspect for these companies. So can you share with us, how do you go about that? How do you figure out what's the story, what's the science, and how do you merge the two?
That's a really good question, Harsh. Bringing a complex drug to market isn't just about science. It's about telling the
Mm,
story in a way that resonates with patients, doctors, and investors. And at CG Life, that's our North Star. And so when I joined CG Life, what I found so fascinating is we have our complement of scientists. We have PhDs on staff. They really understand the science, but they partner really well together with the storytellers, the people who can write content, who can design content,
mm,
who know how to reach out into the marketplace and tell that story in really compelling ways, depending on who the audience is. Um, when I joined, I saw the foundation of this storytelling and this foundation of understanding the science and being able to translate it. And I thought, okay, let's take this from the world of genomics and cell and gene therapy that we know so well, a lot of the early stage technologies and research, and let's bring this kind of through its next logical step and bring it right to pharma, right to the companies that are
mm,
bringing these therapies to market for patients. And so, with the board's approval and the support of management, we laid out an ambitious growth plan, an ambitious growth strategy to do just that. And at its foundation was a strategy to leverage our life science experience and move into biopharma. We know genomics, we know cell and gene, we know its role in new medicines for patients with rare and hard to treat diseases. I know pharma commercialization. So we said, let's put these things together. So we set out to build out the capabilities and the experience to deliver on the promise of helping rare disease biopharma companies shepherd their life-giving therapies to market to impact the lives of patients and their caregivers. Um, it was a big plan, and we started out 2024 saying, okay, everybody, fasten your seatbelts because this is going to be a fun ride, but we've got a
mm,
lot to do. We've got a lot to accomplish to do this. So we started and launched a multi-pronged plan. The first step was acquire Toolhouse. Toolhouse is a prominent digital agency for pharma, very well known in the space. I've known them for years. And then
okay.
secondly, acquire Berry and Company, a New York City-based PR and social media agency specializing in early stage biotechs. We also made the decision to hire some additional key leadership and align on a very tight, focused value proposition to guide us. It was really a combination of bringing these three companies together. And since the spring, we've done all of that. In just three
Mm,
months, We combine expert capabilities in science, core heritage of CG Life, and strategy, PR, digital, data analytics, media, and social, essentially doubling the size of our agency. And a lot has happened in the last, well, I would say probably since the spring. Not only have we
Mm.
successfully executed these two agency acquisitions to elevate us into a dominant player in this space, but we've worked to integrate the mission, vision, values of these three companies into one. We've combined our expert capabilities together. And by bringing people together from different backgrounds, skills, expertise, but still sharing similar core values,
Mm.
we were able to purpose build an agency to bring significant breadth of expertise under one roof. And I feel like all these strategic moves are really poised to elevate CG Life to help life science clients make a profound impact on the industry and in the
Yeah.
lives of their patients.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, as you explain the strategy of how CG Life acquired these companies. You mentioned about, I didn't catch the name,
Barry and Company.
Berry and Company. Okay, so that's the one you mentioned was really good at social media, and that was kind of a good segue into my next question, which is, as you were going through, this growth strategy of looking at these potential collaborative partners that you could either work with or acquire them and bring all those capabilities in house instead of trying to build that arm of your company, which obviously, the build versus buy debate is always there, and I see a lot of companies going with the buy option because it's much easier to acquire and get that strength right away. But the question I wanted to ask you is, the biopharmaceutical industry has evolved a lot in the last 15, 20 years. I started in 2007, and just between then and now, there's a lot of new types of therapeutic modalities, new types of startups and companies that are coming out. And then the world of marketing has also evolved, right? From the early Facebook days to where we are today with video and all other sorts of ways to tell your story, whether you are a life science company or just a single freelancer or anybody. You have so many ways to share your story with the world. So given all this rapid development in the biopharmaceutical industry and on the digital marketing side, what do you think are some of the opportunities for pharma companies, and what do you think are some of the challenges with all that's going on?
So, certainly with digital and social media, there are a lot of channels out there. There's a lot of ways for companies to talk to consumers.
Hmm.
And if you're not careful, that very quickly becomes noise. We're just
Yep.
shouting at the world, shouting at the marketplace. And all of us, we all know this as consumers, pretty soon we just start to turn it off or we opt out. And then suddenly that channel's closed for a company. That's
Hmm.
there are better and more and smarter ways to use these channels and use them in very effective ways. And it really starts with the patient, the consumer, understanding the patient, understanding the healthcare professional. What exactly do they need? If you can connect with them with content that's relevant and that's engaging and that meets a need that they have today, suddenly you've got an interested party. Suddenly you have someone who
Hmm.
is raising their hand, and now suddenly they're opted in to a database. We find that's very true in both digital and social. If we can use social as a way to find a tribe, to find a group of patients that are struggling with a particular rare disease or their caregivers, and begin to impart to them content that is relevant for their place in the patient journey, you've got an audience.
Hmm.
And if you have really interesting clinical information for a healthcare professional, I can tell you doctors get a ton of content. My wife's a physician. Her mailbox inbox overflows with all kinds of spam.
Hmm.
But when she gets a message that's relevant for the patients she's seeing right now, and it's and it's articulated in a way that respects her intelligence. So it's crystal clear on what the medical insight is, but it doesn't drag her down. She's an audience. She'll take
Hmm.
that. She'll save it. Even better, she will pass it around and she will
Yep.
send it to her colleagues. That's the gold in that. So it starts with truly understanding who your audience is, and that's the role for technology, for data analytics, being able to use data and analytics in a really smart way to segment your audience, to target them, to begin to learn from them. I often say that every time you engage with a customer, you think you're communicating to them, but they're also communicating back to you.
Right.
They're telling you, did I stay on this website? Did I open this email? Did I respond to this email? Did I download this clinical study? Did I start to follow? Did I start to like? Did I start to pass someone? That is giving you really valuable information on what they care about and what they want to consume. And
Yep.
if you can use that in a smart way and use that then to evolve your next communication, now you're engaging, now you're having a conversation, and now you're building a customer.
Right. Yeah. 100%. I know you mentioned like talking to the customer or talking to the consumer. And then what you said is also really important, because just because we have multiple channels today or multiple ways of creating content, if you don't have a good strategy, then it's just a bunch of noise. But if you know exactly what kind of platform, like let's say if you are a biotech or pharma company and you want to post content on TikTok or on LinkedIn, that might look very different from what you might write on a blog article, or what you might have one of your executives go to a industry conference and say on a keynote speech or a podcast, right? So understanding
Yep.
that, yes, there's all these different ways to share what the company is doing, what their values, what their mission, why, what are they trying to do for those patients. But if you don't have a strategy for every channel, or at least idea of which channels are your strengths or weaknesses, then you're just going to be throwing a lot of money and resources and not seeing the results.
Yep. And I would say to build on that, harsh, the life science industry, the pharma industry really needs marketers who know how to translate complex science and make it approachable.
Mm.
Early in my agency career, I came up with a communication principle that is as true today as it was ever. You must touch the heart to move the mind.
Mm.
You must touch the heart to move the mind. Effective communication is key in the marketing world. And when complex science is evolved, it becomes even more crucial to turn complex concepts into stories that resonate
Yep.
with people. It's this dynamic, compelling storytelling that provides people with an emotional connection to science, to scientific advancements, and what it means for patients. And that's really critical for us today.
That's really interesting, David. And you've shared so much insights on marketing, on storytelling, and working with companies. For anybody listening here, that wants to maybe dive a little bit deeper as to how exactly does CG Life work with biotech companies, do you have any case studies or examples of maybe a smaller startup and versus a enterprise company, and how do you help them in what ways?
Sure, I'm happy to. I mean, we've got a lot of great stories. I get very excited about the work that we're doing here and the companies that we've helped. And frankly, the companies that we're working with, I mean, they're the highlight of our day because we're working with really exciting scientists and entrepreneurs that are bringing new breakthroughs to the marketplace. Um, one of our clients, Terran Biosciences, is a phenomenal company, very exciting. They're an early stage biotech platform. They're dedicated to the development of transformational therapeutics for metabolic, neurologic, and psychiatric diseases.
Hmm.
The founder, Dr. Sam Clark, he
Yep.
personally is driven by the impact and devastation of those with neuropsychiatric illnesses that are not being properly treated, or unfortunately, in many cases, not being treated at all. And he began thinking, can we bring much more effective psychiatric therapies to market for these patients that don't carry the debilitating side effects that are
Mm.
so common in some of these psychiatric therapies. And with that, that was really the motivation for him to start Terran in 2017. And since then, Terran has built out more novel psychedelics than any group in history and has generated many new approaches to making these otherwise difficult compounds viable. In fact, Dr. Clark himself is co-inventor with more than 200 patents. So
Mm.
he's the brain surgeon, if you will. He's
Yep.
the smart guy in the room. But he has built a team around him because he recognizes that there's real need in this space. The global neuroscience treatment industry is expected to grow to over 200 billion by 2026. So when we got involved, Terran looked to us to gain neuroscience market visibility for the firm and to establish Sam Clark, Dr. Clark, their CEO, as an innovation leader supporting a changing landscape in this neuropsychiatric space. So we got to work. Here at CG Life, we have a 25-person strategic communications group that includes PR, corporate communications, social media advocacy, crisis communications. This team has extraordinary depth in both early stage biotech and life science. So Terran's initial market visibility was to appear at conferences, and we provided on-site interviews at multiple conferences in late 2023. We secured Dr. Clark as a guest on leading life science and biotech podcasts and expanded his voice as a thought leader in industry articles. We combined Terran's impressive expertise and Dr. Clark's growing media presence to put him up as an expert for commentary on major industry news. And we landed him top coverage in top tier industry publications like Bloomberg, Pharma Voice, Politico, Stat, Biopharma Dive. In less than a year, we secured 60 pieces of original coverage for Terran.
Mm.
So it was a big deal. When you're a very small company and you're going up against a very entrenched marketplace, it's really important that you build your brand. And that's what our team here is experts at. We're also very good at when a company is about to come out of stealth mode, like they've just raised their Series A and they want to emerge in a big way. We provide a lot of the strategic advisory services, including a comprehensive media relations plan to be able to tell the company's core narrative, develop their key messaging. We provide media training to key spokespeople. These are all the components that are necessary for a company that is an early stage now, but they are getting ready to come out and debut in the marketplace. So that's the kind of stuff we do for some of these small emerging clinical stage companies. They deserve all of this awareness building because what they're bringing to the market is critical.
Yep.
And our team, I can tell you, is very passionate about this. And they've got the leading editors and writers on speed dial, so they know that when one of our team members calls, it's something that's important. At the other end of the spectrum, we also work with established pharma companies, and Novo Nordisk is a global pharma company, quite well known in the area of diabetes and obesity management. And they're also very well known in other chronic conditions, including rare diseases such as hemophilia and growth disorders. We've been involved with Novo for many years. One particular area that I find really fascinating, this is really at the enterprise level, Novo was looking to improve the overall digital customer experiences for HCPs, healthcare professionals, across its portfolio of drugs by focusing on the HCP journey and the needs of each individual customer. In other words, can we build a platform, an online platform that allows any physician to access any bit of information about any up to 20 brands across a variety of therapeutic areas, while streamlining in the back office the workflows that it takes for people at Novo to be able to update that with new content. And so Toolhouse, which is one of the companies that we bought earlier this year, worked with them to find an approach that would leverage technology to automate campaigns, to reduce costs, to break down channel silos within Novo itself. And what they created, the heart of this solution, is called Novo MedLink,
Mm.
novomedlink.com. It's a centralized hub that brought together all of Novo Nordisk's physician-facing product information, services, clinical education, patient support materials into an easy to use site. And particularly the patient support materials is really important because now physicians can go out and they can actually download materials that they can in turn give to their patient. It's really a one-stop shop for a wide variety of HCP customers. Um, it also includes other centralized web-based services such as sample ordering. So if you're, as a physician, you want a sample of a product, you can go online and order it. If you want a sales rep to come by and drop off materials or talk to you about a new product that's coming out, you can go online and find your local rep.
Yep.
You can order in-office patient materials such as product and disease state information. So it's a phenomenal site that's used every day by physicians all over the country. And the result is it's streamlined, it reduced the costs, and it provided a one-stop shop for physicians so they don't have to go from product site to product site. They can go to one place. It also was interesting because behind the scenes, we're obviously collecting data. This comes back to data.
Yep.
We're collecting data on people who come, what they look for, what are they asking for, what are they downloading. And that enables us to go back to Novo with great insight into what's important and how would we continue to personalize the experience for physicians. So I think this is a great example of the role and the power of technology
Yep.
to bring more efficiencies and better service to the physicians that are caring for patients every day.
Yeah, and you, when you mentioned, I had no idea that your team works with Terran. So shameless plug. I'm pointing here because my team knows we got to show them the episode of because we had Dr. Sam Clark here in July. Amazingly talented entrepreneur. He's so passionate about the psychedelic treatments, and he started this company with $10,000 back when he was in his dorm room, and tons of patents. Like, he was going into all these regulatory strategies, like how he's gonna have every single, it's insane. Like, I've never talked to somebody who is so dialed in. So if anybody's interested, go check out that episode. We'll link it here. He's amazing.
That's great, Harsh. Well, now you know why we love our job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get the opportunity to talk to people like this. We get the opportunity to work with these people day in and day out and help them move along that commercialization journey and help them accelerate that path to get these products out into market so they're really helping patients.
Yeah. So this is really a great, representation of how you work with external uh, teams and partners at these smaller companies like Terran or bigger companies like Novo Nordisk. For somebody who maybe wants to start a very small CG Life or some sort of a marketing agency catered towards life sciences, uh, based on your entrepreneur journey and the experience you've had in seeing how marketing was done 30 years ago and how it's done today, what are some nuggets of wisdom that you want to give other
Mm.
entrepreneurs who are trying to build a marketing agency of some sorts in pharma?
Well, it comes back to, I think, what I started with at the very beginning, and that's understanding your focus.
Mm.
And because the market is changing so much, I always start by saying, talk to your customers first.
Yeah.
Find out what they really care about, what they really need. I mean, even now, today, I still have these conversations. I had dinner 3 weeks ago with the president of a very large rare disease pharma company. And I sat down with him, and over 3 hours and a couple of bottles of wine, I said, I'm building a purpose built agency to serve companies like yours. What
Mm.
should I do next? What company should I buy next? What practice area should I invest in next to be higher value to you to help you get your products to market faster? And I got really important, insightful information from him that is influencing how I think about our next moves.
Yep.
2 weeks ago, I talked to another pharma CEO coming out of a board meeting, and I told him what we were doing. And he said, what you're doing is so important. He said, working with early stage, clinical stage companies, he said, you need to be talking about commercialization 10 years before they expect to launch, because right now at that stage, they're so focused on the science, but they need to be thinking about where they're going. So I would suggest to any young entrepreneur, the first thing to do is go out, talk to the marketplace, and see if you can find some white space or some unmet needs, or where they say, you know what, I've got some agencies that do this and do that, but I really could use some help over here. And if you hear that 2 or 3 times, suddenly you've got, a theory that
Yep.
you can start to experiment with and play with and test in the marketplace.
That's
That was where I
very
would
that
start.
Yeah, that's very powerful, and this can apply to many other parts, right? Like even when I started consulting agency 2 years ago in quality and regulatory and software validation, it wasn't like there was no company like that, right? So when I started, I that's all I knew. That's all I had done for like 15 years. So naturally I knew that's how I wanted to start. But as you rightly said, I was talking to so many people in the early days of the company, and I was basically asking them, what like what kind of consulting companies do you work with today? What would you want to change? Uh, you know, in how they're working. So I'll give you one example because this is something that one of our clients said. He's like, oh, we are a small company, so we don't like when consulting companies are just saying, oh, you get a part-time or a full-time consultant and you pay for 20 hours or 40 hours, whether you have work or not. And I was like, interesting. So I asked him, like, can you tell me a little bit more? Like, what would you like? He said, I would like some kind of a flexible pricing. So basically, we sign a contract for a year. There's a minimum monthly commitment that we have to pay. But then from there on, I might need a consultant for 5 hours. I might need one for 60. And it really changes week to week or month to month. And if I can get some sort of analytics or the time reporting, then there is some transparency into who's working on what project on how many hours. So from there I took that information. I'm like, okay, what can I do? And I found a bunch of time tracking softwares and tools, and I told our consultants, hey, we're going to be working on 3-4 projects at the same time, but
Mm-hmm.
we're not like other firms where you get one client and one project and that's all you do. You're juggling 3 or 4. Put everything here in this time tracking, and then automatically that goes to every client, so they only pay for the hours that you work. And that's,
Yep.
I would have never done that if this client didn't tell me that that's what they wanted, right? And I've had other clients tell me, wow, these time reports are crazy. How do you Where are you getting all these from? And I'm not crunching them. It's a software that it costs $20 or $30 a month, but to the client it just signals that, oh, it's transparency, it's flexibility, all these values that matter to 40 or 50 people startups. So yeah, I totally relate to that
Yeah.
advice.
So Harsh, and believe me, that's true when you're starting a company, a small company like you did, like I did years ago, like I'm doing now. It's
Yep.
also very important for those scientists that are building these small early stage clinical stage companies. It's so easy to say to fall in love with your own science and
Right.
then hope that the market will come to you. But even as you're building out the science, the innovation, you need to be out in the marketplace, finding out where is the white space and where can I be the most effective and provide the most value. And
Yep.
that's part of the role that's part of what CG Life does in our upfront brand strategy is we really help these CEOs understand the marketplace and listen to the HCPs, listen to the patients.
Yeah, and it's a very exciting space to be in marketing, especially in pharma, because, like I said, both pharma, the biopharma space, and the marketing space are increasingly changing really fast with a lot of new developments, especially with technology, AI, and all the stuff happening. So it's a very exciting space. I'm sure you're busy. You have tons
Mm-hmm.
of projects going on. If you want to share a little bit with our listeners who want to learn more about CG Life, or maybe look into what you are doing, maybe have a potential call to see if you are the right partner to work with them, where should they reach out to you?
Well, they could certainly go to cglife.com,
Yep.
which is our website. You could certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there as well, and I make a lot of connections through LinkedIn. So just David Ormesher. There's only one of us in the United States, I think.
Yep.
So it'll be pretty easy to find me.
All right. Yeah. We'll link those in the show notes so the listeners can check it out. Before we drop off, I just have one final question for you. Looking back at your journey, if there's one lesson, maybe something you learned at your first venture at Closer Look, or something you learned at CG Life, uh, what do you want the listeners to take away from this episode?
Well, I would say if there's one thing I've learned time and time again, it's all about the team.
Mm,
I can't do this alone, but by attracting a team of individuals who are smarter than me and who are willing to learn how to work together, we can do anything. Years ago, I had this thought experiment that went something like this. Can I create a self managing company where I didn't have to be on every decision or in every sales call?
yep.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders who are still totally wrapped up in the business. But when you recruit the right leaders and are willing to get out of their way, you can have a high functioning, high performance team. And that's good for everybody, our clients, our employees, and me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really powerful. And talking about team, for our listeners, please let us know in the comments what other types of topics or experts do you want to hear from on the podcast. Our team does a really great job of reaching out to all these experts. But if there's a specific topic that you want to learn about, like today we learned a lot about the world of marketing, which is not the type of content we've done in the past, at least 6 or 8 episodes. So if there's something interesting that you want to learn about, just let us know in the comments and we will find a really amazing guest to come here and share some knowledge on that. Thank you, David. It was nice talking to you.
Harsh, it's been great spending time with you as well. Take care.